So next we have our project which has our reference images loaded. And I'm going to immediately save a copy basically. And I'm going to start numbering these. So I'll put this as 2. And actually what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to say Suncat2 or Suncat1 reference images complete. And then I'm going to immediately save it again as so now we're going to do, I'll make this Suncat2 and I'm going to name it modeling start. And the reason to do this is you could also use version control, but sometimes image software doesn't version great. It should work okay because it'll tend to make a brand new image each time, so it'll be a new file. So it ends up kind of being the same thing anyway. So I'm just going to save versions for now in this introductory approach. So just as a review, we had the front and side views with the background images set. When we move out of the orthographic view, those images disappear. So they're really only there to allow us to align things in front. And they both look the same but we've aligned the front image with the front orthoscopic view and orthographic view, and we've had the side image aligned with the right orthographic view. Let's see. Yeah, it's not showing up on the left. We could bring those in and reverse them, but I think this will be fine for now. If we need them, I'll bring in that image and reverse it. So now I'm going to delete this cube. I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to go to I'll go to the side. And there's a couple ways you can do this modeling. One is you can start with a simple object, either a sphere or a cube. Sometimes you see it might be tempting to use a sphere because, in some ways this is kind of a spherical object. But I actually think a cylinder or a cube usually is your best starting point if you're going to do it this way. But I can bring in this cube, and then from the side view, maybe what I could do is, right now we're in object mode, and we're in we are in the wireframe mode. That's why this looks like a wireframe. I'm going to go back to the viewport shading so we can see the cube, and I'm going to scale this down, and then I'm going to hit the G key and move it to where this is. So one way of modeling this is this way. So you start off with a simple shape like this, and you kind of scale it roughly in the spot. And very quickly then what we're going to do is we're going to hit the tab key. So the tab key goes into edit mode, and that means that we can see the vertices. Now, one of the problems is with it like this, I can't actually see see my model very well. So we could go into wireframe, but there's another mode here that says toggle X-ray, and I really like X-ray mode. And what that allows me to do is it still shades a little bit, but I can see lines behind it. And if I go to the front view, I can see lines behind it. So what this allows me to do now is I could scale this maybe in the X direction, yes, like this, and then I could start selecting vertices. Now the nice thing about the X-ray mode is when I select vertices, it'll select all the way through. If I didn't have that, and I was back in my shaded mode. I wasn't in X-ray mode. And I highlight, and here you see I highlighted. Notice that it doesn't select the back vertices. And often with this kind of work, you kind of want to be able to select everything. So here I select everything, and then again I'm going to scale in X and get those vertices on the waistline on that line, and then I'll get this one and scale it in X and put those on the waistline. Now, at this point, you know, I could see, well, I probably want to bring that in. The next useful key I'm going to use is Control R. And what Control R does is allows me to add an edge loop. And if you forget that, which, you know, who can memorize all of these commands, you can see it says loop cut, and it actually has shortcut Control R. So if I forget, I can go look it up. And then once you click on it, you can raise and lower this. So it's, oops. I want to undo that. It's usually best to do that in this view because then I can see where I want that. And I kind of want it right about here. So then I will scale that in X again. And I could add more of these. And kind of get this shape about where I want it. Using scale in X. So I'm only scaling in X. And you can see it's going to be very blocky and square initially, but we're going to fix that later on. Now, here we want to then bring this up. Now, I really am going to make a skin out of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the top. And to do that, I'm going to switch to face select mode. And you'll see when you go to face select mode, there's these little dots. And I can select and then shift select these sides. And then what I can do is I can hit delete. If I hit delete, if I delete vertices, it's going to remove that whole top layer. Watch what happens. If I do that, I don't want to delete the vertices in this case. Instead, what I want to do is just really remove the faces. And I now have this line. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to get rid of this top line here. And I'm going to get rid of that edge. So now, if I go out of X-ray mode, it makes more sense what's happening here. You can see I'm getting rid of those faces. So this basically becomes a square tube. I'm going to go back to the front view, go back to X-ray mode, go back to vertex. And now what I can do is I can extrude. And so if you hit extrude, like I'll hit extrude here, you can see this kind of goes all over the place. But I want to make sure that it goes straight up. So when I do the extrude, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit E for, well, first I'm going to select my edge. I'm going to hit extrude up, and then if I hit Z, oh, yeah, extrude. Yeah, if I hit Z, let me cancel out of this, make sure I'm completely out so that it's clear. I have that, I extrude. Looks like I'm in the Z direction. Yeah, so if I hit Z, it'll extrude in the Z direction. And I'm probably going to put this one just under the armpits. And then I'm going to scale in X so that it goes just under there. And then I'll extrude again. And I'll go just about to the shoulder points. I'm going to scale. I'm going to bring this in a little bit. I'm going to extrude again. I'm going to go right to the base of the neck, scale it in. And, you know, like the neck's thin this way, it's a little bit too thick that way, the way I drew it. So sometimes you have to make, you know, you're going to make some adjustments. And when we're first starting out, we're not going to worry too much about this being perfect. Notice as because I just did a straight scale and did scale next, this came in, but that's okay because that's going to start working on the neck. So then I'll extrude up for the neck, and I'll leave it there for now. And then I'll start working down here. So this I'll extrude down. Again, I'll hit Z to keep it isolated in the Z direction. I'll scale it out. And now we're going to want to start splitting this extrusion. And we start getting into a situation where we really want to work, as we do one half, we want the other half to be automated. So we're going to apply something called a mirror modifier. And the way we're going to do that is this. I'm going to actually select all of these vertices on the left side and delete them. So now that I have half of a model. And now, because I want this leg to be separated, I'm going to connect the front and the back here. And to join 2 points and make an edge, let's see if they have the facing tool up here. The command is F for face. And if you have two things connected, it will make, if you have two vertices connected, it'll make a line. We could, if I had all 4 of these vertices selected, hit face, it will make a face. And so often, your mesh is basically a combination of vertices connected together, which is an edge, and then 3 or more vertices connected together make a face. Now, when we're modeling for the kind of art we're doing, we don't want more than 4 vertices to make a face. We want all of our faces to be quads if we can. We can also use tris. We definitely don't want 5 vertices or more faces. We want them to all be 3 or 4 faces. So we could do this. And once I have that, I can take this face and now I can start extruding this down to get to the foot. So I extrude and roughly put it in the middle and then scale it down. And I'm going to scale it in X because what I want to do is when I do the now one of the problems is that I only selected the front 2 because I wasn't in X-ray mode. So if you do things like that, just undo it. Go back to the front view. Make sure you're in the right X-ray mode. This way I can make sure I select all 4 like that. And then I'm going to extrude. And I don't want it to be in Z in this phase because now I'm trying to make it equidistant so that when I scale in X, I can bring these down to the edge and then extrude. And if it's not where you want, you can actually go, you can go back and select these things and hit G. I'll put this one right about where the knee is and then scale in X and then extrude again. Hit G, put it about where the ankle is. And then I'm going to extrude down and bring this down to where the bottom of the foot will be. Maybe move it out just a little bit because that's where the foot will be. And so this is what we have. We have 1/2. Now how do we make this so the other half mirrors it? Well, the next thing we're going to do is over here we have the ability to add modifiers, and we're going to use a number of these. We're not going to use all of them, and so you can look up you can look up the modifier and look them up in Blender. It's not bad if you just want to do some reading. It's just open this up, look up array modifier, look up bevel, and just read the documentation. Don't necessarily experiment with it right away. find the ones that you're interested in, and then play around with them. Find some tutorials on them and experiment with them. One that's that's extremely common at this point is the mirror modifier, and so that's this one here. And you'll notice that it made that now it's displaying the other one on the other side. So if I go and click on, get rid of X-ray mode, you can kind of see what it's doing. And note that if I do any modifications to this, it does the same thing on the other side. And so now everything I do on this side will be mirrored on the other side. There's also some options here. I recommend enabling clipping. What this does is if I make something, part of the geometry, go over to the other side, it'll stop it at the middle and then join anything that joins in the middle automatically. So that's useful. And you can actually change the axes. You can actually have things be mirrored along 2 axes or even 3. So it makes like a star-looking thing. And there's different options that you can set. So now we have this mirror modifier. We can continue on. So we've got the front, and now we need to extrude the arm. So I'm going to go to face select and select this face. Go back to vertices. It looks like it didn't select everything. You can also select multiple vertices this way. And then back on the front view, make sure I'm in X-ray mode. I'm going to then extrude this. Now this is extruding along the normals, which is fine. So I'm just going to extrude and then go and then move it. Now this is rotated the way the shoulder is, so I'm going to rotate this to line this up, and I can just use R, and I'm just going to bring this kind of in line here and then scale. Now I'm going to be scaling in Z to get this to be roughly there. And you can see we're starting to fall out of lines because we don't have, but we're going to go through, we're going to add some more, we'll add some more cuts in this. I just right now want to get to scale Z again. I just want to get the basic alignments of this thing roughly in the right spot. And then for the hand, I'll extrude, scale, and Z again, move it. And this is art. There's no absolute right answer. It's your character. You decide where you want things to go, and your answer will be correct. Now, there's also other ways you can get game art is to there are asset stores you can get, but I think it's often a good idea to make your own art. There's a lot to be said that for things having a consistent look. So this sets it up for your own style. And then I'm going to look from the top, and we can see from the top it's very blocky. From here it's kind of right. So we've roughly in the right spot here. I'm going to go from the side view and start working on that. So now I'm going to go to the side view. And here what I'm going to do is it's basically just a matter of put these vertices where they need to be. And I'm going to make sure I'm in X-ray mode. I'm going to select all the way across. I'm going to hit the G key and start putting these vertices. Now because I need this tail, I'm going to move these so that they can frame out where the tail begins. And so I may not be staying perfectly aligned with things. And so I just start moving them. And here, if I want to stay parallel, what I can do is I can constrain it along the y-axis. And now this is where it makes sense here. G and Y will constrain the Y so that when I bring these over, it's kind of bringing things roughly where they need to be. Now, my foot obviously needs a little bit more geometry. I'm going to take this and constrain along the Y. Now, one thing, if I want this to fall directly below it, there's another tool which is very useful for us. And this is this tool up here. This is the snap tool. We can snap either to increments, which all these little squares that you see in here is the grid. That's usually useful for architectural type drawing, but for this, usually we want to align things with other vertices. So I'm going to select vertex, and then I'm going to enable. We can see we can enable the snap here. So now what happens is when I select this and I'm going to move, if I get close to that vertex, it snaps to that. But what I want is for it to be parallel underneath. So I'm going to say, I hit G, I'm going to hit Y to constrain it along the Y-axis, and then I'm going to move my cursor to this. And so now this vertex is directly under that one. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Move in the G direction, constrain it to the Y, and constrain that. So now I've got this so that I'll pull the heel off of the back here, and I'll pull the front of the foot off of that. And now I'll continue and do the same things with the top. I'll select vertices in X-ray mode. Always do this in X-ray mode so we get both of those vertices. And then I'll move, hit G and Y, so that I keep it along the same plane as much as possible. It just makes it easier for now if all these things stay, you know, roughly along the same orientation. This one, for example, let's see. And if they get out of alignment, what you can do is, if you want to get this one back in alignment, I'm going to hit G and then Z, and then snap to that one. Now this one is parallel to the ground to that one, and then I'll hit G and Y and bring it over. This one is way down below that. I want it to be parallel, so I'll hit G and Z, so it's moving only up and down. Snap to this so that it's lined up, and then G and Y and move it about where I want it, and then I just continue on. So now it gets kind of tricky because we're looking along the arm, and so sometimes to select your vertices, you may select them like this. And it looks like, do I have multiples going on here? Yeah, there's something going on here where I think I extruded and left a vertex here. So if you get into the situation where, if you really look at this, if I click multiple times, I actually have multiple vertices. And what happened is I hit extrude, then I hit extrude again, and now I've got these multiple vertices, and that kind of messes things up for me a little bit. I really want that to be one vertex. So there is a way of fixing that too. What you can do is you can drag select all those vertices here, and then you hit M for merge. And so I'm going to merge at center. So now all these vertices have been merged into one, and then I'm going to merge those so that those are one. And then same thing here, I'm going to merge those so that they're merged, and merge this one so that they're merged. So now those vertices are all merged. Another thing I'm kind of wondering is if this is a face. So I'm going to go into wireframe mode. It doesn't look like wireframe. Oh, that's wireframe. Get out of X-ray mode, put it in the wire. Yeah, get out of X-ray mode, put it in wireframe. And then I'm going to put it in face select mode. It's not showing me. And sometimes I need to peek in to make sure that something weird's not happening. So I'm going to select What's going on? Yeah, I can see there's a face in there, and I don't want it to have that. I want it to be okay. I think what I did is there's this overlay mode. If you unclick that, it doesn't give you all your signals. So, okay, going back into edit mode, now we can see everything. Good. So I'm lucky I can look through here, go into face select mode and select this face. And then I'm going to delete that face so that now it's going all the way through. And you can sometimes get really close and maneuver your way in so you can look inside the model. You can also temporarily remove a face and look in, but you kind of want to make sure that this is hollow on the inside, that you don't have any intervening faces. A couple reasons for that is that if you have a face in there, it gets rendered and it causes math that you don't want to have happen, and also it can create some weird artifacts on the outside. So I cleaned that up. So let's see, I'm going to go back to X-ray mode, I'm going to go back to vertex mode, and back to my side. And again, the original problem is we wanted to be able to select that vertex and that vertex. And when I selected those vertexes, what I saw that I had multiple ones. Actually, I'm going to just select this one and this one initially. And look, again, we have this problem. You can see when I select that, there's two vertices. And in fact, you can sometimes temporarily move, and you can see there's some weird, that obviously something got duplicated somewhere in here. So, and then we have that here. If I see that kind of situation, so obviously when I accidentally clicked stuff and created some duplicates, one way of doing that is highlighting and merging all those and making sure that there's just one vertex in those. Okay, that needs to be one vertex center. So periodically clean up your work. Make sure that it's clean. Oh, I actually selected one below. If you do that, Control Z, reselect, merge at center. When you do these kinds of merges at center, make sure you're in X-ray mode so you're selecting everything. And I'm just going to go through and clean up these vertices and make sure that they're just one vertex and not multiple things. And I think all this problem happened up here as we made the transition to the shoulder. Sometimes things will happen. You know, let's just be safe. Okay, so now back to what I want to do. I want to select that vertex and this vertex and then go back into side view mode, and then I'm going to move that into position. I'm going to constrain it along the Y. Now it looks like that, so that gets the bump out. And then I'll select this one and this one. Look from the side view. That looks pretty good. And now these arms are a little bit too thick. Now if I were to just grab this and bring it in, it would look kind of weird, I think. I need some geometry in here to start to pull this in before I go in. So I'm going to hit Control R and add an edge loop around this and bring this in here. And then from the top, I'm going to hit Shift and select the rest of these, and I'm going to scale these in the Y direction. just to get the arms more in so that they're about the same width as their height. I'm not looking for this to be perfect at this point. In fact, the big theme here is you're not looking for perfect. You're looking for slightly better than it was before. So scale, Y direction, I think I need this to be a little bit thinner. And that looks pretty good, I think, or reasonably good. Now this is interesting. Notice, again, we have some weird things happening here. And I think it's related to multiple vertices. So we need to do some repair before we move in here. That's not bad, but this is bad because we got this little fillet thing happening here, and we don't want that. So I'm going to actually just go into face select mode and see if I can select that. Yeah, I think that's a face, an extra face. So I'm going to delete that. And okay, there, that kind of brought it in. There's an extra face defined from these two vertices to these two vertices, and this was kind of extra. So we may, something happened to mess up a little bit, but we'll get that correct. Now this under thing here, we're going to want to change the scaling a little bit. So I'm going to, from vertex mode, and again, this is just where you're using your best judgment. I think if I move this one down in Z a little bit, move this up a little bit, and now I'm going to add some more geometry here. So I'm going to Control R. And another thing you can do with Control R is you can, if you hit the scroll wheel, it can add more geometry automatically. And then you can shift this back and forth. But I'm just going to after I click that, I can move it back and forth, but I just kind of want it to be evenly spaced. So I'm just going to hit the right key, and then that stops it. And then I'll do the same thing over here, add some more geometry, and then stop that. And now that gives me more stuff I can work with. So I can take this now and just kind of move these about where they need to be. Just make sure everything's going good. And just going to hide my image. Oh, I was in viewport shading. That's why I couldn't see through it. If I went back to, I was in this one. If I'm in this viewport shading, I can see through, and that's much more useful. We're going to get the elbow there. Get the outside of this, and again, now I can see, you can see there's something going on in here. So if you see that, go into face mode, see if you can select that face. There it is. There's this extra face in there for some reason. So I'm going to delete that face and make sure my geometry is as clean as I can get it. And then it's back to moving vertices about where I want them. Here I'm just using G because we don't need them to be exactly horizontally aligned. We're just going to get them. And the drawing itself is just an approximation. So later on what we're going to do is we're going to refine this just by eye. I'm going to add another one here. Control R. And yeah, you can see there's a line left there. So that's informing me that there is there's another weird geometry thing. And what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing, it tells me this is office. Here's this line here, which should be the surface area, but then there's this other line right here, and it's like, what's that? Well, if I shift here, I can see, oh, look, there's this face that's an extra one. If that happens, select it and delete that face with the delete key, and now we're back to just one edge, and I want to make sure that it's all like that. So now that I've got this roughly in the shape of the arm, I can go to the top view and probably, actually now, because I don't have a view from the top of this arm, I'm going to go to vertex mode. I'm going to look at it from this side. And now what I want to do is kind of shape it from this perspective. So here it's useful to select edge loops. And that is, if you hit an Alt key and select things, now you can select edge loops. I don't want that one. So you select the edge with the Alt key, and it selects everything in a loop. And so I'm going to take this edge loop, and then I'm going to scale it. I know it's scaled vertically okay. I'm going to scale it in Y. And so that's the elbow. And then I'm going to scale it in Y again. And so what I'm just trying to do is make this look more rounded, as it were. Maybe this comes out a little bit. Scale in Y. And so we're trying to get that arm to be a little bit more dimensional. The reason why I'm only scaling in Y is because we already kind of did the scaling in X, and so I'm really kind of making these into just rectangles or into squares, because because we already scaled the vertical position. Not completely squares, but more square. And like I said, this is an introductory thing. So we're just trying to roughly learn these steps. Not trying to be experts, we're just trying to get something roughly pretty good looking, or okay looking. Or really, the standard is what you like. Now, when you're really close, it can't do that. So sometimes what you do is you select the square, move your cursor off, and then when you do the scale and Y, if you're farther away, we've got another issue here. Look at that. Those were vertices, were extra vertices. So again, I'm going to merge those vertices because I make sure these all merged around. Sometimes you can see little tone differences, and that kind of gives you a hint. Make sure I'm in X-ray mode, highlight those vertices, and just merge them. All four, make sure I've got properly merged vertices. And I might, just in case there's stuff going on outside, I will do the same. And that happens often if you hit the extrude button 2 times, and it leaves an extra vertex in position. So let's see. So now we're getting to the hand, and the hand needs to flatten out. So I'm going to go to the top, and let's see if I go to so this is the wrist. I'm going to highlight the wrist one so I know where those are. I'm going to go to this position, and the wrist actually starts flattening. So I'm going to scale in Y here. I'm going to take these and scale them in Y as well all together. And we start having a flat part for the hand. Now the other thing is that with an arm, the back part of the arm tends to be flatter. So I'm going to now move these in the Y direction and kind of bring all of this, all these elements, so that the bone structure kind of lines up more or less like that. And I think we're getting closer. I hit tab to go out of tab view just to see. And one of the things that may be asked is, this is still very blocky. How do we make this rounder? Well, this is probably a good opportunity to add another modifier. So I'm going to add another modifier, and this is called a subdivision surface modifier. And immediately you notice that it kind of rounds things out a little bit. It's not perfect, but it is closer. And there is a difference between whether this is at the beginning or the end. So if I take this and move this modifier beforehand, notice what happens at the top here. It kind of splits off and does weird things. If I have this after the mirror modifier, it's much better. So we want this subsurface after the mirror modifier. And then this will often show you where you have some geometry issues, because we can see here, this is something weird's going on here. When I go to the tab mode, I can see my and that's why, and this is actually a good example of why we have a problem. And what we have a problem here with is, you can see that there's an extra set of faces on here. And so I'm going to go to face select mode, and I'm going to select, so that face is okay, that face is okay. Something's not merged properly though. So if that's the case, sometimes what you do is you just delete and see if it's something like that. Okay, that looks a little better. It looks like there's an extra set of faces in there, and then that may indicate that there's some vertices that are not merged. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to select those, merge at center, merge at center. You can see now, again, our unmerged vertice problem was creating some of these issues, perhaps. And there's some other stuff going on here too. That looks okay, that looks okay. So I moved this face in here just to see what's going on a little bit. And then I can recreate that face that's missing by selecting the vertices and then hitting the face tool, and that puts that back in. And I think I'm going to go out of X-ray mode and see how that's looking. So I think we're okay. And obviously, you know, when you've worked this a little bit more, you start seeing more things. Now, right now we are at one subdivision. We can go here to our subdivisions modifier and add another subdivision, and depending on the power of your computer, you can add more, and it'll show you what this looks like. The fact that this is so square up here makes me think that there's some more issues going on here. So I want to open that face up and see why that's not smoothing out. That's kind of interesting. that face back in. So we'll fix that a little bit later, and we're probably going to need to do some work here. This arm still looks a little weird. Let's extrude the thumb. So I'll take this face here and extrude. Hit the E. And then here I'm going to need 4 subdivisions. So let's see. Put a Control R. So I can put 4 in that way, and then I hit Control R and then roll the scroll wheel a couple times. And then I can take these and then I can extrude these out and get some fingers. And then in here we're going to need to do some subdivisions. Yeah, I'm going to put 3. So roughly have a hand and I'm going to put a subdivision that way. And I'm going to start bringing out the foot. So I'm going to bring this, or actually I'm going to face select this side. I'm going to go my side view and then I'm going to extrude this out here. I'm going to pick the heel, go to the side view, extrude it out to the back. And I'm going to add some more subdivisions. Notice when you bring something close and you can make it have a sharper angle here. If you have fewer subdivisions farther out, it makes it more rounded. He has 3 toes, so I need some subdivisions all the way up. So I'm going to roll 3 subdivisions in there with the Control R so that we get some more geometry that way. And going from the side view, go back to vertice, go back to X-ray mode so I can see and select through. Move this in the Y direction to here, and then take each of these faces. Oh wait, I have 4 toes. I wanted, so I'm going to go back. Hit my Control R and just want 2 subdivisions so that I get 3 pieces. That's about where the toes start. And then pick each face and extrude something that will become the toe. It gets kind of busy. And then here we just kind of play around with things. So at this point I'm going to take these vertices here. I think I need to lower them a little bit. Just like these. And sometimes some of this is not super precise, you're just trying to find Now, if I do a subdivision that way, it doesn't go all the way across when I have 3 elements like that. So another tool which is maybe more useful is this knife tool, because then I can just slice across, and it didn't go all the way through. It's not cutting through the way I want it to. And we're just going to use the R. And sometimes it doesn't always do exactly what you want to do. So I'll just go through each one of these and put some subdivisions in so I can shape this a little bit more. That's too many. I want to deal with all that right now. There. Now I can select these and kind of see, scale this in X, bring them out a little bit, shift them over to this side a little bit. And you'll just keep playing around with these things and get them roughly in order. I'm not going to get this all, sorted out in this presentation here, but this is kind of, when you have these organic shapes, it's kind of finicky, and you have to kind of do some work to get things roughly in shape. So that's the basic design for the torso. I think I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to keep futzing around with this and get this into the right shape, and then next we'll work on the head for this creature. And so let's see what it looks like. Some issues. I need to make this not be square. I need to take make these more round. And a lot of that is pushing and pulling vertices into the right position. I also need to extrude the tail. It's going to be the same thing. Really, it'd be take this face and extrude it out. And then just shape it and position it where you want the tail to be. So that's our beginning, and the next step will be just keep moving and perfecting this to be a little better. Thank you very much.